Welcome to this video about the zodiac and the Sunring. I am Malena and I am one of the creators of Sunring Astrology. So the zodiac, what is it? Well, it can be explained very simply by it's a division of the sky in 12 equal parts. It's just that in reality it's not that simple. And the masters of the universe, as I prefer to call them, those who once created astrology, used a very clever method to divide the sky. And I mean, it was so intelligent that we are still using it today. Why they divided the sky, we don't know. But it could be perhaps that they wanted to measure time and not just days, months, and so on, but eons of time. And maybe they also wanted to create a method with which they could study human nature. In any way, they made this system so intelligent and thought through that we are still using it today. And we don't really know where astrology originated. When you read about it, you may learn that, well, it was in Babylon, and then the Egyptians contributed their things, and then ancient Greece. But I think astrology is much older than that, and we will slightly touch upon why in this video. But my guess, it's so ancient that it may have, we'll find its origins before the end of the last ice age. In any case, astrology is, as you know, a geocentric system. It studies how we humans, it puts us humans at the center of everything and studies how the celestial bodies, everything that goes on around us influences. So you study something that happened in the sky and see, does that correlate to something that happens with individuals or humanity as a whole? So when you draw a birth chart, you make an easy sort of picture of the sky. So you draw a circle, and that circle represents the planets, the moon, the stars circling around us. And the middle of the circle represent us humans looking up at the sky. And then you plot the planets wherever they were at a person's birth. So a birth chart is like a snapshot of what the sky looked like when you were born. And as we humans perceive everything or the sky, it is like when you see the sun, for example, you know it rises in the east, it reaches its highest point at the south, and then it descends in the west. So the sun follows a specific path across the sky, and this path is called the ecliptic. The sun doesn't move like zigzag, and one day it moves in the other direction and so on. So it's always the same path from this human perspective, from our point of view on Earth. And now you may say that, well, I'm not really interested in this sort of geocentric view. I believe in objective science. The problem is that science always changes and nothing is really objective. As an observer, you're always in this system of or matrix that we call our reality. You can never step outside of it. So the study will always be dependent on the observer, so it will always be subjective. And as you know, what I told you in the previous videos, we have no clue actually what's going on around us because we can only consciously perceive 1% of all the electromagnetic frequencies that we are exposed to. And of course, we can measure other frequencies, so we can cover a little bit more of this enormous electromagnetic field, but we will not know exactly how that influences us. But that is what astrology tries to do by observation. That has now been, these observations have been going on for thousands of years, which counts for something. So the sun from our geocentric perspective, moves from east to west. And it's the same with the moon. The moon also rises in the east, reaches its highest point in the south, and then descends in the west. And it's the same with the planets. They follow the same, they move along the ecliptic. It's like a band on the sky where all these, the sun, the moon, and the planets move. There are also constellations in this part of the sky. I mean, there are constellations of stars all over, along the pole star and so on. But along this band, the ecliptic, there are 12 constellations, and they have lent their names to the different like parts of the zodiac, to the different zones that the zodiac consists of. And you, of course, know these names. It's Aries, it's Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. So what this ancient culture, the masters of the universe, did was, okay, now we are going to divide the sky. The problem is that the sky always moves. It's like one revolution every 24 hours where everything moves around in a big circle clockwise. And all these celestial bodies, they move in approximately the same speed, but not quite. It's like watching a 400-meter sprint where all the contestants, in the beginning, they move together. But then one perhaps starts lagging behind and another moves ahead of the others. So this is the same with the celestial bodies. They move over the course of 24 hours in, well, approximately the same speed, but not quite. So astrology studies the differences, what is happening, the relationships between the planets and the moon and the sun and these constellations to see the relationship between them. So everything moves in this circle. So if it's the ecliptic, it's easiest perhaps to explain if you are close to the equator. And this is one of the reasons why I think astrology is much older than most people think, because astrology, seen as a big celestial clock measuring time, works best at the equator. Because if you're in Kampala, you're in Uganda, and you see the sun rising, it will rise in the east, and then the sun will move directly over your head, and then it will descend in the west. Where I am, in Sweden, far north, the ecliptic tilts, or it's slanting. I don't see the sun directly above my head. I see it like the sun moves in a sort of slanting way like this in the sky. So the ecliptic is much lower. You can't even see much of the ecliptic at some point. So at the equator, it's like a part of the sky rises and moves ahead above your head constantly. So let's say that you have a time glass of 2 hours and you start the time glass and then you watch what part of the sky is rising. And then when your time glass is empty, you turn it around and then there will be another part of the sky rising. So for every second hour, you have a zone and you name this zone. You could name it in any way you want. You could say, okay, this zone we call 1, the next zone we call 2, and the zone after that, we call that zone 3. And after 24 hours, we are back where we started with zone 1 that now rises at the horizon in the east. But the masters of the universe, they choose to name these zones after the constellations that could be seen in these zones. So if they saw the part of the sky that was rising during 2 hours and they saw, there is the constellation of Capricorn, we call that zone Capricorn. The problem is now, since everything is moving and sort of changing positions during the year, when do you start? And the astrological year starts at the vernal equinox or the spring equinox, when day and night are equally long. And right at that moment, the sun is exactly above your head if you are positioned on the equator. At other points of the year, the sun will tilt a little bit on either side, but at the vernal equinox or the autumn equinox, the sun will be directly above the head of the observer standing on the equator. So the astrological year starts at vernal equinox, and at a specific time, you could also say at dawn, because if you look, or the ancient, these masters of the universe, they started the year at the vernal equinox at dawn. Looking eastward at dawn, they saw, okay, what constellation is rising there together with the sun? And it was Aries. Then, after another 2 hours, there was another constellation rising, and they decided to name that part of the sky Taurus. And after yet another couple of hours, there was yet another zone of the sky rising, and they saw the constellation there, and it was Gemini. So that zone of the sky got its name Gemini, and so on. So the constellations are groups of stars, but they are not the same as the zodiac sign. So the constellation Gemini is not the same as the zodiac sign Gemini, because the zodiac sign Gemini describes a part of the sky, or as we know, a part of the energy field, or this electromagnetic field that we are always surrounded by. So if you, for example, are a Cancer, it means that when you were born, the sun rose together with the sign or zodiac sign of Cancer, that part of the sky, and then they moved together across the sky during that period, during that month. So all of you born during this time got some sort of general imprint. You got the Cancer energy imprint, which characterizes you as persons. It doesn't explain everything, but part of you. And then later, since everything is moving approximately at the same speed, but not quite, so a little bit later, it is not longer Cancer, the zone of Cancer, or the zodiac sign of Cancer that rises together with the sun in the morning, but the zodiac sign of Leo. So those people who were born a little bit later during the summer, they are all born with the sun in the zone or zodiac sign of Leo. So that's where all these, I'm born Cancer, I'm a Virgo, and so on, where it comes from. It's actually the position of the sun in a certain zone of the sky. So a better name for this is to say that it is your sun sign. It describes the position of the sun when you were born. Of course, you also have a moon sign, because the moon was somewhere in the sky when you were born. So the moon was in a certain zone of the sky, which will characterize you in another way. The sun sign will provide you with some sort of general energy imprint when you are born, when the energy field will like blast into the newborn baby. It will have certain characteristics depending on the sun's position in relation to Earth, which is described by the different zodiac signs. The moon will be in another sign, and the moon represents our emotions, our spontaneous reaction, all those things within us that developed before we became fully conscious and were able to communicate with the world when we were babies. And those spontaneous or very primal parts of us can, of course, suddenly erupt when you're arguing with someone, perhaps a loved one. Suddenly there's like this part of you that just becomes visible. And especially if this happens at work, people may be like, oh, what happened? Gosh, I didn't recognize him or her because, whoa. Ooh. So that's why it's quite beneficial to study the moon in your birth chart, because then you get to know these parts of yourself that are very hidden most of the time in us grown-ups. So we have a little guide. It's called our moon guide, where you can read about it. It can be very helpful for you. So I suggest you read it because learning about the moon is very beneficial. But the sun sign, your sun sign, gives you some sort of general personal energy. But I know most people think that, well, it's not, yeah, I can relate to it, but it's not perfect. It's not everything. So there are, of course, other influences than the sun sign. But we will stay a little bit more with this, the zones and the signs, because since the masters of the universe created this zodiac, things have happened in the sky that sort of turns everything around. Not only that, the sun shifts its position over the year, so it stays in different zones of the year, but since astrology was created, the constellations in the sky have shifted their position. Before Jesus, everything was in sync. So in the morning of the vernal equinox, it was the constellation of Aries that was rising together with the sun. So they, as you know, they had called this zone the Aries. But Jesus said there will be a new time, and he wore a ring with a fish motif. What he meant, partly at least, was that in his time, at the morning of the vernal equinox, it was not longer Aries that could be seen rising together with the sun, but the constellation of Pisces. And now, as you know, we are moving into the age of Aquarius. And this is because soon there will not be the constellation of Pisces that will be seen rising together with the sun at the dawn of the vernal equinox, but the constellation of Aquarius. This is a very slow shift of the stars over thousands of years. So there is a shift in position of the constellations that can be seen at the dawn of the vernal equinox with a period of 2,160 years per sign or per constellation. So after about 26,000 years, we are back where we started. And this is what is called an astrological age that I mentioned in the first video, just very short. The problem is, or not a problem, but the thing is that in astrology, we have kept the names of the zones. So even if it's not Aries any longer that arises together with the sun at dawn at the vernal equinox, but it is instead Aquarius, we still say that people born during this time is born in the zodiac sign of Aries, because the zones are part of the electromagnetic field. And that field has very little to do with the stars. So even if the stars in the sky have shifted their position, the energy on the earth at the vernal equinox is still the same. So we can still call that energy Aries. And that's the same with all other periods during the year. It's not the stars that will give this imprint of energy when we are born. It's the energy field. So even if the stars slowly shift their position over millennia, we still call the zones, in Western astrology, we still call the zones the same. So if you're born Capricorn, that's in the middle of the winter here in the Northern Hemisphere. It simply means that the sun was positioned at its lowest point in the sky in the Northern Hemisphere, and that gives a special energy all over the world. And it doesn't really matter what we call this zone that the sun is positioned in during this time. We can still call it Capricorn, because along with Capricorn comes all of these mythical, metaphorical things that help us understand humans. So that's why in astrology, all these zones of the sky has kept their old names, although the constellations have shifted their position in the sky. Now, it's not only the sun that will give this personality imprint on you, because that imprint is so general for all people born during that period, during that month. But there will also be a very time and place specific energy that you will be imprinted with, which is equally important as your sun sign. And that is the ascendant. It's called the ascendant in astrology. And when I learned astrology, when I started studying it, the ascendant was simply explained like, well, it's the point. When you're born, there's this point in the east on the horizon, and that's your ascendant. And the zodiac sign where this point is positioned is very important because it describes your outwardly expressed personality. So, for example, say that you're born Leo. So that is like some sort of basic energy. But then your ascendant is Aquarius. This means that many people will perhaps see you as an Aquarius. They will think you match that zodiac sign best, those characteristics. Or they will perhaps mostly see you as some kind of mix between Leo and Aquarius. So the ascendant is, how you express your personality to the world. But what I never understood in the beginning was like, okay, there's this point. Why is a point important? I mean, it's not a planet, it's not the sun, it's not the moon. So it's just a point. Okay, it's in the east and everything rises in the east. So, but why is a point interesting? Now, when I see everything from an electromagnetic perspective, I believe this point describes the most important part of the electromagnetic field that is blasting into the baby when the baby is born. So you remember, everything moves from our perspective from east to west in a clockwise direction. And this means that there will be some sort of movement also in this electromagnetic field. If you are at the equator, that energy will sort of blast into you like this. Where I am positioned close to Stockholm in Sweden, the energy will rather blast into me like at the side because I'm much further north. But in any case, that it's the part of the energy field that is moving most directly towards me or the newborn baby. The other parts of the field will move above me and behind my back at the other side of the earth. So I think the reason why the ascendant is important is because it describes the most important part of the electromagnetic field when a person is born. And astrology does not explain it this way. They don't explain it at all that I have seen, because astrology is, as I have said before, based on empirical knowledge, observations in the sky and in human nature and humanity as a whole. And then you see if there is any connection or correlation between that. But I believe the ascendant is it's simply your imprint or part of the imprint from the energy field at your exact position where you are born. And since this is a point on the horizon, and the extent of the horizon looks different depending on where we are on Earth. So there will be, even if you're born at the same time, you may have different ascendants depending on where you are. If you're in Paris, Chicago, or wherever, the ascendant will differ. So to know what your ascendant is, you of course have to know when you were born, the exact time, because everyone knows what year, month, and day they were born. But to find your ascendant, you also need to check the exact time. And then you can plug all those data into an online astrology calculator, and that calculator will give you all the facts about where was your sun, which you already know, in what sign was your moon, and your ascendant, and then a ton of different other information about the planets, about the lunar nodes, about, I don't know, Arabic part. I mean, you can make it incredibly, incredibly complicated with hundreds of details of the exact position and relation between the planets, if it's like 30 degrees between them or 45 or whatever it is. And so it easily becomes very cluttered and overcomplicated. And I don't think that is very helpful for people. I think it's better for you to study those things that are most important. But I think since nobody really have known what astrology is, they haven't seen it from an electromagnetic perspective. There is no way of ranking. Is an Arabic part in should we use the houses, the planets, which, I mean, there is no way to know which of all these factors are more important. So, but when we see it from an electromagnetic perspective, it's the sun, the moon, and the electromagnetic field. And the ascendant is one of the points of the electromagnetic field that is interesting to study. But there are, of course, other points in the field. If you think about the rising sign, the ascendant, there will also be part of the sky that is descending in the west. And that point is called the descendant in astrology. And astrologers are not that interested in the ascendant, but I am. In electromagnetic astrology, Sunring astrology, we think that point is rather interesting, because if the ascendant describes your personality that you express outwards to the world, here is, we can say, an inward directed personality, a part of you that is only visible when you are alone. As you know, we are complex beings. We are not the same when we are with friends as we are when we are completely alone. Many people will perhaps not know that part of themselves so well because they are seldom completely alone for an enough period of time to be able to study that part of themselves deeply. But it can be very helpful. This is a part of you that most people will never see, perhaps, except for your partner. So in conventional astrology, they say that, well, the descendant, that is how you are when you are with your partner. But I think that explanation is too simplistic. It's simply a part of you that is very intimate and that most people never see, except for perhaps your partner. And this, if we look at a person, for example, we say that this person is born Cancer. So the sun was in Cancer when the person was born. And that means that this person will have a strong feeling for home, for security, for the family. We will have a person who is quite dynamic because Cancer is a water sign. So emotions are important for this person. It's not that this person is not intelligent or can think logically, but emotions are some sort of the basis for this person, as it is a water sign. This person will also have, or Cancer person will also have, it's a cardinal type of energy, and cardinal means leading. So it's a kind of energy that directs. So a person who is born Cancer, as well as Capricorn, Aries and Libra, they have some sort of energy that directs people and things. So if they suggest something, let's do like this, I think we should do like this, people have a tendency to follow because they can put this cardinal type of energy behind their words. So this person with the sun in the Cancer, say that this person has the ascendant in Gemini. And Gemini is an air sign, it's communicative, it has lots of ideas, it's thinking back and forth, it doesn't hold on to things, talkative. So people around this person may see the person as a Gemini or some sort of mix between Gemini and Cancer. But then when this person comes home and is alone, there will be something of a Sagittarius in that person as well, because Sagittarius is on the opposite side of Gemini in the zodiac. And Sagittarius is a rather adventurous, freedom-seeking sign that wants to explore the world. And this could lead to a kind of, say, perhaps a restlessness, an inner feeling that I want something more. I want to explore. I don't want to just stay at the same place, either like physically or in your mind, which may, if you meet someone and started dating and that person sees this Cancer Gemini person, and then later in the relationship, this sort of Sagittarian element will come forth, and your partner will be like, well, what is this? What is happening? Why are you not content with what we have, and so on. This descendant energy is what can also lead you to like a spiritual path or personal development, because it can for many people feel like they want something more there. So I think it has been very helpful for me to discover my descendant, because I have discovered or seen parts of myself, or really started to understand parts of myself, and just thinking they were odd quirks in my personality, and glad that people don't see them. And now I can laugh at them and also see them for what they are. So the descendant is very helpful. It's not as important as the ascendant, but it will give you an extra flavor. I mean, we are complex beings. We are not the same when we are with friends at work, when we are alone, when we are kids. So, and this dynamic personality of yours is explained by the different points in the electromagnetic fields. It's 4 points in total, and we call these 4 points the Sunring. And the reason why we have invented this new name, the Sunring, is because these points, we describe them slightly differently than conventional astrology, and we also place them slightly differently, because we see astrology that it has originated at somewhere along the equator, and at the equator everything is symmetrical, and we think this energy is a geometrical symmetrical system. So that will be another video, but we place these points slightly differently. So the ascendant and the descendant will always be the same, no matter what astrology system you use. But then there is also a point in this field at the south and at the north, at the back of you, or below, at the bottom side of the birth chart. So what are these points? Well, the south, the point at the southern point of your birth chart, is the part of your personality that you express like at work, or how society sees you, society at large. And it could also be seen as your highest potential, when if we see that our role is to do good for humanity. So if we take this Cancer Gemini person who has his or her descendant in Sagittarius, this person will have their so-called medium coeli in Pisces. Medium coeli means middle of the sky, and is the southernmost point in the birth chart. So this person will have its medium coeli in Pisces. And Pisces is, I'm Pisces. I have my sun in Pisces, and I also have my ascendant in Pisces. And Pisces is a rather like meek and harmless person, who is not so important for Pisces to be in the center of attention. It's rather, since Pisces does not have this very strong core, you could say. It has an enhanced ability to feel its surroundings and can be quite empathic because of that. But this person will then at work have some sort of a little bit of a Pisces energy, which perhaps will make this person not so goal-oriented at work, which may a little bit clash with how that person is usually. And perhaps you don't understand why don't I like this job? It should be perfect for me. It could be because whatever you're working with is missing this essential little Pisces element to it, and your job therefore feels empty. So knowing your medium coeli, what sign your medium coeli is in, will also be helpful because it will tell you or help you find a situation in society or a workplace that you will be happy and content with. Then there is also a point at the north, at the bottom of the chart, or the bottom of the sky behind your back. And that is called imum coeli. It's the bottom of the sky. And that part of you describes part of your personality that were more visible when you were a kid, but that has now a little bit disappeared when you're a grown-up. And that is also helpful, I think, to see why have I changed and how have I changed when I'm getting older. That part will be less and less visible, and when you're 30, it will be mostly gone. I mean, I would like to say, why are we doing this? I think most people reach a stage in life and they feel or ask themselves, who am I? Who am I really? Beyond this artificial kind of persona that you create to live up to others' expectations, to conform, to live up to your own expectations, how you think you should be. But then there might be a time when you ask yourselves, who am I really beyond all this artificial stuff? And then you may want to find your way back home to who you truly are, which can be difficult. And you may consult experts of different kinds, therapists and so on. But I think you know yourself best. And therefore, you eventually need to take that journey alone, where you discover who you really are. And astrology can be your map to guide you back. And with Sunring astrology, we have tried to do this map in a decent and easy to use way, because you study those things that will be most important for you to get to know yourself. And they are your sun sign, your moon sign, and the sun ring. And the sun ring consists of all these points that we have discussed: the ascendant, the descendant, the middle of the sky, medium coeli, and the imum coeli. And we call them, these four signs, the sun ring, because we place these points slightly differently than conventional astrology, and the interpretation is slightly different. But if you check all these things, I mean, you can study that for a lifetime. But if you learn more about these points or these zodiac signs where you have all these sun, the moon, and the sun ring points, it will be easier to get to know yourself better, to know other people, to understand why you react in a certain way, why they react in a certain way, appreciate them for who they are, and appreciate yourself for who you are. It's an exercise in self-empathy and empathy with other people. And that I think is very helpful. So what we have done is we have written about all these signs, the zodiac signs, on our website, where we have sort of cleaned them up. So when you read about Scorpio or, well, Aquarius, Taurus, and so on, the descriptions tend to be a bit exaggerated, and all are like mystical and passionate and, captivating. But we have cleaned them out and tried to focus on the specific energies that characterizes these different zodiac signs. And energy can be expressed both in a positive way and a negative way, and you can see both of them. And we have to remember that the zodiac signs describes archetypes, not the true persons. Archetypes or a caricature. So when you read about Pisces and Sagittarius and Virgo and so on, you read everything is a bit extreme, but it's just to make it more clear for you to understand what type of energy are we dealing with here. Besides that, we have also a moon guide, which I have mentioned, that you can read, you can buy for a few dollars, where you can read about the moon in different signs and how, because the moon is about emotions, and emotions are extremely difficult to just explain. So we have tried to do that in a guide that is that you can, it's understandable and that you can actually use. Then we have 12 Sunring guides, because the Sunring changes depending on what is your ascendant. So if you have your ascendant in Taurus, your guide will be our Taurus guide. If you have your ascendant in Libra, your Sunring guide will be the Libra guide. And these guides describe these 4 points in the Sunring, your dynamic personality that complements your sun sign and your moon signs. And together they will give you a rather complete view of who you are. Of course, we can, if you go visit an astrologer, they will talk about all the planets and house system. The house system is yet another division of the sky in 12 zones, additional zones. And there are many house systems, and they all work differently. And I think houses are a very dubious part of astrology and shouldn't be used at all. And there are so many things that have been added to astrology throughout all these thousands of years, and new methods have been developed. So it all becomes incomprehensible for a non-astrologers. And even if you start studying astrology, it will be like if you meet me and I will say like, well, here are 100 different things about you that I can see in the sky. It will not be very helpful. So this is why we have focused from an electromagnetic perspective on your sun sign, your moon sign, and the Sunring. So I think I've covered most of what I wanted to say now about the zodiac and the Sunring. In the next video, and it will probably be the last video in this series, I will talk about why the Sunring, or these points, ascendant, descendant, medium coeli, and imum coeli, differs from our perspective compared with conventional astrology. That will be a very interesting discussion, because we will go even further into the origins of astrology. But this is all for now. And thank you for listening, and I hope you found this video helpful. And you can discover more on our website, especially how you find the ascendant. We have a special article for that called How to Find Your Sun Ring and Moon, or maybe it's How to Find Your Ascendant. I don't remember the exact title, but you will easily find it if you need help using these online calculators to find your ascendant. So thank you so much for listening.